downstairs. I've got Maxine over here watching Bake Off.
Let's have a look. You got a beverage.
I have. Maxine went to Bent's and bought me a nice beer. This is a Laurel American Pale Ale.
Oh, lovely.
It's very nice, actually.
So, have you just come back from the cinema, David?
Yes. Oh, hello, Greg. We're recording.
who have you been with?
Myself and...
Oh, you go on your own?
Oh, you know what I was saying to Max earlier? It's like, not in a bad way. I absolutely love going to cinema on my own at the minute. I love going with Lever and yourself, obviously, but I go with Lever more. But I like going with you, but we never go to the cinema. Like going with Lever, she's like, don't like going with your wife. I like going to the cinema with you. Exactly. So I like going on my own because everything's on my terms. It's just great. I have a big popcorn. I can go for a wee whenever I like.
Good, I like.
Because usually I've got to ask Max if we're at home.
Oh dear. So, what was your choice of seats? Were you at the back, at the front?
I like to go middle toward either in the middle or in the middle, slightly towards the back. But I always get an aisle seat. I just like the aisle. Get straight out.
Recently, I've started going right on the very, very back row. I really like having no one behind me, and also, I like some cinemas like the aisle, but there's so much space at the light cinemas. You don't have to get people to move their feet; you just walk in front of them, so it's cool.
Nice.
So that's my position. So we have both this week seen Dune, which is
just before we get into this, I just want to really, really quickly because it's quite. What's the word I'm looking for? Current. Just a real quick thank you to Daniel for buying. He's bought us five beers, Gregory.
Yes,
very kind of him. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. Cheers.
Means a lot.
It does mean a lot. And right. Set up to Dune. Right, Dune. Right.
Hard to explain, Dune, isn't it?
1965 novel, same name. It was David Lynch made a film in 1984 about it. I don't think either of us have seen that.
Not Sting's in it. I know that.
Sting is in it.
I don't know if Sting plays though.
No, I'm not sure. And so this is called. It's called Dune, but in the titles, it's Dune Part 1. Now, bit of background. It's been cited as being a big influence for Star Wars, hasn't it?
Yes, yeah. Well, this is something we said months ago when I think we actually watched the trailer, didn't we? When the first trailer came out, we actually watched it live on the podcast. And I said a big thing with this is people are going to compare it to Star Wars, but actually George Lucas stole a lot of things from this film for Star Wars. So I think there's always going to have comparisons to Star Wars,
and you can see that. Yeah, so it's set on another planet where there's this substance called spice that is harvested, isn't it? And it's not the
spice. Just head down bloody Market Street in Manchester,
Piccadilly Gardens. Yeah, absolutely. But this is like. This is a substance that can give certain powers. It can be used for energy, for space travel. It can be, if you take spice, you get, I don't know. It's got all sorts of qualities.
It's the most valuable substance in the galaxy, isn't it? Basically,
yeah, exactly. So in there you've got lead role Timothée Chalamet, who plays Paul. You got Rebecca Ferguson as his mother. Oscar Isaac's in there as his father. You got Josh Brolin in there. Dave Bautista, Zendaya, who is sort of in there, and I suspect he's going to play a much bigger role. Is that a spoiler?
We'll see.
Film? Anyway, this is called Dune Part 1 in the titles, which basically it's a given that there's going to be at least a Part 2, isn't there? This takes us halfway through the book. Right?
Yes. I've got things to say about that, but maybe whatever. Yeah. We'll discuss that. The story's a little bit difficult to explain because there is a lot going on. But if you were to cram it down, it's about the son of a noble family. Yeah, he's entrusted with the protection of the most valuable asset and the most vital element in the galaxy. Yeah. And what it is the galaxy sort of set up, and it's noble houses, and they basically run planets. His family is called it's the Atreides, isn't it? And they live on this particular planet, but then they're the emperor of the galaxy basically tasks his father to move everybody onto this new planet, which is like this desert planet, where and basically harvest and mine spice.
Yes.
And there's a lot of twists and turns, and maybe there's some backstabbing, which takes Paul on this journey. It's also probably worth mentioning that his mum is essentially a witch.
Yeah.
It's this very strange kind of unspoken, like, I don't know, underworld to this galaxy where there's a little bit of magic going on, and Paul is finding that he has these powers as well. Yeah?
Yes.
Hmm.
And here's the thing, I'm torn because there's part of me that hates these sort of films. It's why I hate Lord of the Rings. It's why it took me about 3 or 4 years before I started watching Game of Thrones, and about 3 attempts, because these sci-fi, well, no, Game of Thrones isn't sci-fi, but and neither is Lord of the Rings, but these sort of like otherworldly fantasy worlds where everything's very serious and everything's very epic, and you're from house this and they're from house that, and this is my honor, and we're going to and the story is overly complicated, and you have to have a family tree in front of you in order to follow who's who, and stuff like that. As a rule, I despise, because it all takes itself like so super seriously. I enjoyed watching this film, but I hated all of that side of it. So there was a point where it's a good hour in after they've sort of put all these pieces in place and everything like that, and it's all set up, where they go out to visit the harvester. You know that bit?
Yeah.
And it gets really, really exciting. That's the first sort of edge of your seat scene. It gets really, really thrilling, and then it kind of continues with that for the hour and a half after that, really. And they do some really, really cool stuff. Whilst we've been speaking a lot about CG recently, we've spoke to Rajiv Dasani, who works a lot in visual effects and CG, and we were speaking then about why some of the older films with the very sort of basic effects are so good.
Yeah.
And one of the films we spoke about quite a bit was Jurassic Park, the first Jurassic Park. And one of the great things about that, and it's the same with like Jaws, I suppose, in a way, and many other films, is that they hold back what you see.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest things about this film, and one of the things that I think is most commendable, is despite having all these tools and having all this CG at hand, with the worm, which is essentially, and I don't think it's a spoiler.
And we're not talking about the late 90s, mid noughties dance move made famous by Scotty Too Hottie of Too Cool in WWF at the time, and Rikishi, obviously. It's these giant sandworms, aren't they?
Yeah, and they do, despite having absolutely the ability to show from the start the huge scale of this ginormous creature that causes havoc across the desert, that they do what they do in the original Jurassic Park and the original Jaws to some extent, and they tease. They tease from the start. You see small amounts early on, and it built throughout the film. It builds and builds and builds. So it gets to the point where you get that crescendo in the final act, where you get to see the full scale of this thing, and it's quite striking. It's something from a horror film, and it's terrifying. And they could have so easily gone all out early on, and just thrown the money at it, and because they've got the ability to do that. But they showed that restraint, and I think all the better for it, really. I thought the cast was good. I really enjoyed Timothée Chalamet. I really enjoyed Rebecca Ferguson and Oscar Isaac. I think it's a good ensemble cast. I just wish with the scripts of these things they didn't take themselves seriously. And we've spoken about this before. It's why I don't like some of the Marvel films so much, is because they do take themselves too seriously. Which is why it's nice light relief when you get your films like your Guardians and your Ragnaroks and things like that. I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to go too far the other way, but it would have been nice to see a little bit more sort of bit more humor in there, a little bit more of a human side to it, rather than everything being so serious and epic. What do you think to it?
Well, it's probably worth noting first, and you know this, like I absolutely love sci-fi, and especially these kind of like world building, hard sci-fi films like this. So I obviously was always gonna go in with a little bit of a the odds tipped in their favor. I can't remember coming out of the cinema so deflated in my entire life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just was not on board for this in the slightest, and I went in with all high hopes. I thought the trailers looked amazing. I looked Denis Villeneuve or whatever his name is. I love all majority of his other stuff is like pretty great, but actually, there's a lot of things I really didn't like about it. But maybe we'll talk about the things I liked first. So I suppose, as you were saying, you can't deny it. This is a very, very bold film. It's setting up this gigantic universe of characters and it's very political, and there's a lot of kind of cogs in this machine. That's probably maybe another one of its downfalls as well, but I'll talk about that in a second. The real winner of this entire film is Oscar Isaac's beard. I think, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I was just literally, whenever he was on screen, and I love Oscar Isaac, I was just looking at that beard going, wow, that really is. There's no CGI there, Greg. And they weren't scared. They weren't scared of showing it as well.
Your beard is good. Oscar,
your beard is good.
Something that's compliments about your beard. Your beard is good.
I just on that's just kind of jumped into my head as well. I really, really loved Stellan Skarsgård as the Baron. He was just so minging, so grotesque, and just like everything he did was just you're like, oh, you dirty bastard. But whatever, cool. Okay, you mentioned Timothée Chalamet. I thought he was really, really good, and actually, sometimes when you get these like teen heartthrobs, your Zac Efrons and things like that, you're like, oh, they're all going to be crap. But actually, he's such a good actor. We loved him in Little Women, didn't we? Yeah. And a few of the other little things that he's popped up in.
Beautiful jawline.
Well, Timothy, literally, so captivated, and what a jawline is actually my next little bit. But Timothée Chalamet does this really, really smart thing, and I can't really describe it properly, but he treads this fine line of, because he's so young looking, he treads this really fine line of coming across as childish, and there's a lot of things he does in this film, and it's like, it's playing on him being a boy. The whole film's a metaphor for puberty, really, isn't it?
Of course,
But he treads this line of he's still a boy and he's trying to be a man. But then he does these really cool little things, or he'll either just adjust his posture, or he'll just adjust the tone or pitch of his voice, and instantly he grows up, and it's something really, really clever. And especially in his performance, I was really, really impressed. I thought it was really great ensemble cast, as you said. Other people in there. We've got Jason Momoa having a great time as Duncan Idaho. What a cowboy name. Amazing.
David Dasmalchian.
I
think he's
called
definitely. Polka Dot Man.
Polka Dot Man. Yes. Who else did we get in there? Javier Bardem. With the most delicious voice in the world. So that was really cool. Visuals, as you'd expect, from Denis Villeneuve. Amazing, absolutely incredible. And like those worms, it's just brill. The soundtrack was ace. It reminded me of I know you don't like him that much, but some of the Zack Snyder soundtracks are really, really interesting. Like a lot of chanting and things like that.
Shouts out to Zimmer.
Zimmer again. And that's why he couldn't do... Was it Tenet? Because he was doing Dune,
that's right.
I think?
Yes,
something
that's
like
right.
that. Yeah. And again, as I said at the start, you've got to kind of praise it for trying to build this very intricate world. However, I feel like the first film... The first film in what you're obviously trying to set up as this new franchise, I feel like it can't lean so heavily on a sequel, because I know it's saying it's Dune Part 1, but they're still umming and ahhing about the sequel. It's not actually officially.
It's kind of an excuse. It's an excuse to do. It's kind of like in case you're left disappointed with
Yeah.
with that, because it's not a traditional beginning, middle, end story
Yeah.
arc, really, is it? And it's
No.
left open ended. I don't think they could have fitted more into the film.
No, exactly.
But it's a disclaimer, really, isn't it? It's like
Yeah. But I feel like, well, just that you can't lean so heavily on it.
yeah.
This film has to have a sequel to make sense, and
Yes.
it's like I don't think that's right. Do you know what I
No.
mean? I think maybe this film, even things like, and I suppose it's a slightly different thing, but like Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows Part 1.
Yeah.
There's an end. Although you've still we have to have that sequel to have a conclusion to the full story. At least that film has an ending.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like it ends with the Dobby bit, and there is a kind of a conclusion to that leg of the journey. This one, there just isn't at all. There's too many threads left left untied or whatever. And again, I know we're gonna get a sequel now, but I feel like that's I don't know. It's a bit of it's
a cop out.
It's a cop out. That's exactly what it is. It's far too complex a story to fit into one, even two films. It should have been a miniseries, or something like that.
Definitely.
Because and I like to not to kind of blow my own trumpet, but I feel like especially with sci-fi, I get it. I kind of I feel like I understand things a little bit, but a lot of the time I was like, who is that? Like what?
Yeah.
So where they go? Okay, so they go in there, and all right, I've got that. And then they mention these other people. I'm like, okay, so are they the people in the sand, or is that the bald guys, or is that these other people? And I was like, what? What is?
For that reason, do you think you'll enjoy it? Firstly, do you think you will rewatch it, and do you think you will enjoy it more with rewatch?
I think I'll rewatch it. Max wants to see it, so I will rewatch it. I'm not entirely sure I will enjoy it as much. Well, I don't think I'm going to get much more out of it. Yeah, it'll make sense a little bit more, but I didn't really enjoy it.
I was getting that first hour. I must admit, I was getting fed up.
Yeah.
Before anything was really happening, I was getting fed up with the politics. I was getting fed up with them speaking about stuff that was going completely over my head. I felt stupid. That first hour, I felt stupid, and then the action started to step up, and that's when.
The thing is, it's not necessarily an action film, which is fine, but you need. Well, the other point, it's just not accessible enough to really enjoy it, to kind of jump in. And I'm not saying you've got to dumb the film down, but I just feel like there's not really there was no point where I was like, I can just jump in here. Do you know what I mean? And I'll hold my hands up. I think I missed maybe the first 5 minutes of the film because traffic was a nightmare and stuff like that. And I walked in, and it was only 5 minutes. I'd lent to the guy like a bit down the road. I was like, have I missed much? He was like, no, like 2 minutes or so. I hadn't a clue what was going on. I was just like, what is... His mum was saying, you need to use this different tone. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I always try to pass me
the drink. Yeah, that's only a couple of minutes into the film, isn't it? But I was just like,
but there's nothing before that to give that context. That just happens. And that's supposed to to pick it up there.
But it's like I just feel like that alienates everyone.
Yeah,
and whether that's the point, I don't know. But
there's an arrogance to it, isn't there?
Yeah,
there are going to be your sci-fi nerds, like you proper geeks who like absolutely love it, who are just like, oh, I get it. Don't you understand that? They're from House That, and that's why they. You don't understand, do you? You know what I mean? Like you're going to get that. People are going to love it, and people are going to enjoy it with rewatch. But I think but that's again, that's the same thing that puts me off Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, I'll be honest with you, goes over my head, and maybe I couldn't be arsed. I couldn't be arsed to understand it, but the whole realms and that.
I think this was more complex than Lord of the Rings,
right?
And I like Lord of the Rings. I don't watch them that much, but
I've not seen it since I was 10, 11, 12. So
this there's more going on, and I was like, I was just not into it. I felt like, and this happens in some other films we mentioned. It was like, right, we're here. Then one thing goes wrong, and it leads them to this point, and then that goes wrong, and then they're here, and then he's got to fight this person, and that goes wrong, and then they've got to do that, and it was just like it didn't feel like a cohesive story. It just felt like a collection of events.
Yeah. And
It was like a game. It was like the next. We're on to the next level now, right?
Yeah.
We've got to fly this to here. Oh,
Whereas,
it crashes. We've got to get away from the worm. Oh, da da da. We've got to fight this person. And I was just like, really?
Whereas, like for contrast, and I'm going to compare it to the first Star Wars, as New Hope, as it's now called. It's got the politics. It's got reasonable complexities in the two sort of factions, and whether you side with the Empire,
or the Rebellion,
and all that sort of stuff. But the pace is right for it, because it has that steady pace that films were happy to have back then, to give you the time to get on board with it and hold with the scenes and hold, you know what I mean? Like, and think there's complex dialogue to it, but it's more accessible. In the pacing of it. I agree with you.
The last thing I said is what you said as well. It's too serious, and there's the very, very few little kind of light bits in it. I like his relationship. What's his name? Paul's relationship with Jason Momoa's character. There's a few odd little funny back and forth in that. Josh Brolin as Gurney. A few little funny little bits in there. And I'm not saying it has to be funny, but they're the kind of little touches that make it a little bit nicer. But it's just too all the way through. Whereas again, Star Wars, it's fun. It's a romp. I think that's what this was missing. It's not fun.
No.
And I think you kind of needed that a little bit. So ultimately, I think, great performances, well directed to a certain extent, great cast, but it's a bit of a slog, to be honest, sadly.
My summary is the first hour is a slog. It's better for the second hour and a half. I think I'd like to say I enjoyed it on the whole, but I found it a bit like that 45 pound round, £15 a pint we had the other. It's chewy. It's too rich, too much going on, too chewy.
It's just so funny. The girl comes around and says, "So, do you like craft beers?" And we're like, "Yeah, I like a New England IPA. I like this." And Greg goes, "I don't like a chewy beer." And we're all like, I know exactly what you mean by that.
Absolutely.
Okay, Greg, would you say that Dune Part 1 is Moon or June 1984?
I like it. I'm going to lean towards Moon, because I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt that I am going to watch it again. It's clearly a good production. It just comes with a lot of issues for me at the moment.
Yeah, I feel like Denis Villeneuve's brilliant, but when he's adapting something else or something big, it's not quite. It's a bit more of a slog, like Blade Runner, whatever, 2049 or whatever. We didn't really like it that much, did we?
No.
But then a lot of the other stuff he's done, Arrival, Sicario, some of these other things, they're brilliant. They really are brilliant. Some of the best films of the past 10 years.
Yeah.
These two, just not so much. So there you go. Where can we see Dune, Gregory?
Dune is available in the cinemas now.
Okay.
Should we go back in time, because my tea's ready on Thursday? So let's go back. Let's go back to Wednesday night.
Great.
Rewind.